Morning students. So welcome to the English class. Today we are going to take up Hornbill book and we are going to study poem number 4, Childhood, written by Marcus Nathan. Now this poem is about that the poet is feeling and in trying to find the answer of a question that when he lost his childhood. So basically the poem thematically is being based on the steps to adulthood and awareness lead to the loss of childhood and innocence. So innocence is a synonymous aspect to childhood. Essence of this poem is that it is futile to grieve over the loss of childhood, but it is good to retain the childlike gay. So, let us, before moving towards the explanation of all these stanzas, let us first understand who the poet is. The poet Marcus Nathan, he was a Norwegian poet. In this poem, he tries to find out when he lost his childhood. Now, as we can see, this poem starts with an interrogative line, that is, when did my childhood go? Now, this question here is being asked with different perspectives, where the poet is trying to identify when he lost his childhood. When was the time when he realized that he has left his childhood, innocence has been left there, and now he is moving towards his adulthood. Now, let us move ahead with stanza 1. See here. When did my childhood go? Was it the day I ceased to be 11? Was it the time I realized that hell and heaven could not be found in geography and therefore could not be was that day? Now, see here what the poem is been talking about. See, the poet is saying, was it the day I ceased to be 11? That means, was it that day when I completed my 11 years of age? Ceased here means the completion of the 11 years of age. Okay. So, was it the time I realized that the hell and heaven? See here, when we look here in this line, now, see, hell and heaven. Hell and heaven, here there are two poetic devices which are being used by the poet. First of all, there is antithesis which is being used here by the poet. Now, what is the concept of antithesis? Is there are two opposite concepts which are being used very nicely in a manner that it gives you, it is being phrased nicely in the poem, and here also hell and heaven both are giving the opposite idea, and that is why here the poet has used antithesis. Now, one more aspect is there in hell and heaven, that now we can also say alliteration is also another poetic device which can be which is being used in hell and heaven, because there are the repetition of consonant sounds here, hell, heaven, where H is being used. Okay. Similarly, in this line you can find alliteration is also being used in these two words, the time. Okay, so here also alliteration poetic device is being used. Okay, now what these two lines are been talking here, see what he is saying, that at the age when he completed the age of 11, he was able to realize, he was being, now up till now he was studying his geography subject, and in that geography subject he was unable to find the location of hell and heaven, which was being a concept given to him during his childhood. Maybe the stories, maybe the other life concepts, and he was being given this concept of hell and heaven, that means doing something wrong and right. All his rights and wrongs were being associated with hell and heaven. But when he grew up and when he explored the subject geography, he realized that no such hell and heaven is actually present, is actually being located in geography. There is no physical presence of hell and heaven, and therefore could not be. That means now he realized that no such location is available for hell and heaven in the actual world. This was something which was imaginary. Now this realization is probably is the time when he started attaining his adulthood, and that's what he is saying in the last line. Was that the day? Was that the day on which this realization was made? Was that the day when he lost his childhood? So this was his, he is trying to introspect, he is trying to find the answer to his question. Now let us move to the next stanza here. See here, when did my childhood go? Now again he is repeating this line. Now these kind of repetition of lines again and again in the poem, like similarly here the last line here, these are the repetitions, and we call it as refrain. This is another poetic device which is being used by the poets here, and when a group of phrase which is being repeated in the poem again, like we have seen here, when did my childhood go? This question is being repeated, okay, and similarly, was that the day? This line is also been repeated. So this is the here refrain poetic device is being used by the poet. Okay, now let us move ahead with the stanza here. When did my childhood go? Now from here in this next stanza, the poet is moving to a next approach of the life, and what the approach he is dealing in this stanza is, was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be. They talked of love and preached of love, but did not act so lovingly. Was that the day? Now, if we understand this stanza, basically this stanza deals with the theme of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the approach of human behavior where we deviate from the thought process, or whatever the way we are saying, the action does not match the line of thought. When we have double standards being followed in the lives by the people, that is what is hypocrisy. And what the poet is saying here is that maybe the loss of childhood occurred when he was able to see through the hypocrisy of adults. These people, what they are doing? They are following double standards. What he is saying, that adults were not all they seemed to be. That means what they seemed to be, what they wanted to project, actually adults were not like that. Okay, this realization was made by the poet, and what he says next, they are preaching different standards of behavior, and then what they are actually following. So the standards which they preach means which they convey you, the idea which they gave you, that is the preaching. Okay, so whatever the standards they preach the poet as a child, they do not follow it. So there is a difference between their words and their actions. Now they told the poet to be loving, caring, okay, and however they themselves were not, they were being argumentative, they were being violent, okay, and discourteous also at times, maybe mistreating, misbehaving. So all these types of negative behaviors, when are being shown by the adults, they actually deviated from what they wanted the child to do. They wanted the child to be loving and caring, but they themselves are not following the same behavior. So here there was the double standard. Now perhaps says the poet, recognizing a broken trust was a major step towards adulthood. So what exactly happened? That his trust on his adults, on his maybe the parents or guardians, that people were not been following what they were been saying, so his trust was broken. Now in this manner, when he realized that probably the word is quite different what exactly it is been projected to them. Now this realization was the day when he finally lost his childhood. Okay, now let us move to the next stanza. Okay students, now let us move to the third stanza here. See here what the stanza says. When did my childhood go? Was it when I found my mind was really mine, to use whichever way I choose, producing thoughts that were not those of other people, but my own and mine alone? Was that the day? So now this is, in this stanza again the poet has come up with the same question with a refrain, as he is again exploring that probably this another concept, another approach which he is going to discuss in this stanza is the time probably why that time he lost his childhood. Now what he is saying in this stanza is that he asks that he is trying to guess when he actually lost his childhood. Perhaps it was the day when he realized that his mind could think independently. Now he is not dependent on other people for their intelligence, for their opinion. Now he is enough intelligent. He has internalized or different concepts of life. He has understood the various aspects and approaches of life. Now he has his own intelligence. He is not dependent on others. Now also he has his own experiences of life also now. Okay. Now forming his own opinion and being able to take his own decisions is the new aspect which has now associated with his personality. That means now he is not dependent on others to take the decisions on his behalf. So now he is independent, he can take his own decisions, he can have his own opinion. Okay. Now he gained a sense of individuality. Now this independence of thought, independence from the opinions of others, this is what is the poet is talking about, individuality. Okay, which set him free from the preconceived opinions of others. Now what is the preconceived opinions? That means who all people who surrounds him, who all people he was being dependent up till now for various decisions, for their opinions, for their intelligence. they had their own preconceived notions and with which they used to give him their thought line. Now, poet has been independent. Now his individuality has been gained. He has attained that individuality. Now he is in a position that he can have his own opinion. He has developed that intelligent opinion of his own. Now he is not dependent on others for now his decisions are his own. Okay, that is what he is saying is that experiences that have shaped his thoughts now, and he realized that this might have been the time when he has lost his childhood and attained the adulthood. So probably this is the point where he has lost his childhood. Okay. Now let us move to the third stanza. Here also we can see that there are few of the examples of alliteration which we can easily find here, like whichever way. See here, whichever way. Here also the alliteration is being used. Another example is thoughts that. See in the next line, thoughts that. Here also alliteration poetic device is being used. Okay. Now let us move to the last stanza, that is the fourth stanza, and here again that with the stanza starts with a refrain that where did my childhood go? It went to some forgotten place that's hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know. Now what exactly the poet is been saying here is that he is trying to find out, he is trying to identify where his childhood has gone, and he reflects that maybe his childhood has gone to an unremembered place, a forgotten place which he does not remember now. Actually, he does not recognize or remember about that place, that time where his childhood has lost. So, see here, in the third line of this stanza, he tries to find out, he actually finds his childhood back with a reflection of that childhood he finds in the face of, it was hidden, and he explored that hidden childhood where in the innocent face of a small child. So the poet finds the childhood to be hidden and can be found in the innocent face of a small child who does not have any pretensions and rationality, who trusts others and unconditionally he is being so innocently leading his life, and in that innocence of that small child the poet finds his own childhood over there. In other words, a small child is full of innocence, and there the poet finds his own childhood, and finally he says, that's all I know. And now he is quite satisfied and probably contented that the things he felt up till now been, that means his childhood which he was trying to identify when that childhood was lost, he was actually missing. He was sad about losing his innocence, and he was sad about that his childhood is not being left now with him. So now he has regained, he has found, he has explored that forgotten childhood in the face of a small child, in the innocence of that small child. So this is how the poet has basically dealt with his childhood, which he was feeling to be lost. Now let us talk about few aspects such as rhyming scheme. Now in this poem, the rhyming scheme which is followed by the poet is A, B, B, C, C, D. Let's see here how it has happened. A, B, B, C, C, D. Okay, so in this manner, this rhyming scheme has been followed by the poet. Now, we have already discussed all the poetic devices here in this poem, while we have discussed the various stanzas. So, students, I would suggest all of you to go through the poem and read it carefully, try to understand the various concepts of the poem, and whatever the doubt comes in your mind, we will be dealing with all those aspects in our live session. Thank you, students. Stay home and stay healthy.